Hey, so welcome to the video where we discuss the second section in our action framework, give them a reason to believe. So you made them care already, you've got them on the hook, they're now thinking, hey, that's interesting, but why should they trust you? This is something we often miss at the beginning of the presentation. In fact, part of the problem is we go in and we try to load up and front load the trust before they care about why they should be listening. So we get on a stage and we're like, hey, our company organogram is this. Why? Why are we doing that? You know, our company structure is no one cares, punk ass. Like they don't care yet. And in fact, that's one of the most important things I need you to understand about this section. You're buying the trust relative to the reason you gave them to care. It's not about generic trust. You're simply trying to go out there and say, okay, I've made you care about this topic. Why should you trust me about this topic? So that already allows you to do some triage between all the different information you may be delivering. Now, this trust can come from a few different places. It can come from your experience, or it can come from your research. So if I was talking about Missing Link and doing a presentation on presenting, I might say, you know, Missing Link was established in 1997 when I was just 22 years old. We've won several awards like SlideShare's World's Best Competition and, you know, Prezi's World's Global Best Templates. We've attended some of the world's greatest events, watching some of the world's best speakers. And in fact, we have trained TED speakers on behalf of, the TED organization. And here are some of these guys going, blah, 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 blah. That is it. That's all I need. If I'm doing a presentation on presenting, if I just say we've been doing a presentation company for 23 years, we've trained TED speakers, we've attended the world's top events, we have, won several awards, that's basically enough for you to say, okay, this person is an authority on the topic we're listening to. One little caveat on this, I would like to say, in fact, and I'd like to say one other thing. There's a way that we can cheat some of this at the beginning when it comes to your experience, and that is in your speaker bio or your presentation bio or the introduction to you. And this can almost always happen beforehand, even in a business meeting. I'd like to introduce you to my colleague. Sue is the property expert. She's got 20 years experience in this field, blah, 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 blah. Her specific area of interest is this. Please welcome, Sue. And then she can come up to the stage. When I get on stage beforehand, I always give my audience, or I give my client, a bio, and they read out my bio, and I have to stand there looking suitably humble and embarrassed, like, how did you find this out? Oh my God, it's spoken in over 30 countries, and I'm like, oh God, it's so embarrassing. I give it to them, and the reason I give it to them is I'm trying to buy some of that reason to believe early, and it actually helps me get through that first 5 minutes, give me some credibility to get my audience into their tanks being full. The one problem with experience, though, is that it can come across sometimes as anecdotal. So if you are a world famous athlete and you're delivering a presentation on, your athletics, you might, if you talk about only your stories, then it's anecdotal, it's evidence of one. One of my all-time favorite talks is actually a leadership talk, but it's delivered by a conductor by the name of Itay Talgam. I'm going to link to the longer version here. There's a shorter TED talk you can watch in 20 minutes. I was in the audience also for his talk at Picnic, and it was absolutely phenomenal. Now, this is interesting because he is a very well-respected conductor. He conducts the Tel Aviv Philharmonic Orchestra, and yet, when you watch this video, you'll see he doesn't talk about himself. His experience comes from other things. His authority comes from somewhere else. This is possibly a story for another day, but it's important to understand that you can either get it from your experience or, as I said, from your research. Now, a great example of this is one of my favorite speakers, Malcolm Gladwell. Malcolm Gladwell actually has no business getting on stage talking about the stuff Malcolm Gladwell does. He is not an expert in often the things he's talking about. What he is an expert researcher. What Malcolm Gladwell is an expert writer, an expert journalist. And yet you don't see Malcolm Gladwell do many talks on journalism. You don't see Malcolm Gladwell doing many talks on writing books. What he talks about is the topic he's passionate about, and we believe him because he shares with us research, data, and numbers. I was doing a talk the other day about why I believe online sales are here to stay and why we should really take this seriously. Now, I gave some anecdotal evidence that was relevant to our business, but then I jumped straight into figures delivered by McKinsey and Company that said that 70 to 80% of B2B decision makers prefer remote human interaction or digital self-service. Boom. Right? This information here is the reason to believe that I need to get that message across. That's where I get my trust from. From my experience, kind of, sort of. From my research, absolutely. Because we trust McKinsey. So if I borrow that content in there or the rigor of the data, then my reason to believe is fine. So now you trust me for, you care about something, and now you trust me to deliver that information. So how much should it be? Well, just right. You want to give that kind of Goldilocks level of information. It doesn't have to be too much. It certainly can't be enough. You've got to feel at the end of it, did I answer the question? Should they now trust me to talk about X, where X is the reason to care you gave them? If the answer to that is yes, then you're gold. In a 10-minute presentation, 90 seconds is all you're doing here, right? So that's the kind of ratio. So it's about half as long as your reason to care, if not less. If you can do it in less, fantastic. One little caveat, I guess, the organogram thing, if you might be doing an investor pitch or investor presentation, you may want to talk a bit about who is on the team. In that case, that is important, because the reason to care is this is the problem you're solving in the world. The reason to believe is, of course, the members of the team who can make that happen. My one frustration with Silicon Valley pitches is they swap tell them what they need to know with the reason to believe, and they put this relatively academic, slight boring content too late in the presentation when we should be building. But again, maybe that's a conversation for another day. What is a conversation for another time is when we get into the next step of our framework, which is telling them what they need to know.